Good evening. Good evening. How are you?
Hello, good evening.
How are you tonight?
I am good. I am grateful. As you know, I had a bout of a really bad cold, and so
Yes.
just to be up and out and back almost feeling 100%, I'm grateful.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I feel like something is definitely going around. My sinus has been acting up lately,
Um,
and I have just been fighting for my life. But welcome to Walkabout TV, where you
yes,
find your rhythm and you can find your tribe. It is a pleasure to have you here, and I will just let you introduce yourself.
yes, I'm so happy and excited to be here. I am Akilah Bishop, and I am the founder of Shorelight Consultancy. I'm a registered counseling psychologist. I'm passionate about mental health, passionate about personal development, and I just love to have conversations and engage with people, talk with them, give information, share, listen to people's stories. Just love it. So excited to be here.
And thank you for being a part of the program. So, tonight on Find Your Rhythm, I want people to know that when we think about finding our rhythm, it's not necessarily just about music. Finding your rhythm is your internal rhythm as well. And I feel like in most recent years, because we've had the COVID 19 pandemic, mental health was something that we had to now prioritize. I believe that in the Caribbean for a long time, mental health was something that was just casted aside. But because of the whole lockdown and us not being able to move as freely as we normally would, it kind of made us have to deal with, you know, the elephant in the room, which was mental health. So, as we get into the program tonight, I just want you to share a bit about your background and what inspired you to start your career in psychology.
Okay, yes. So I had a very interesting journey to psychology because I didn't start in psychology. I
Okay.
actually started off pursuing more law. So my associates was in law and history, and then my bachelor's was a double major in law and sociology.
Hmm.
And going along, I felt like something was missing. I felt, in terms of a good fit for me, I was still searching to find out the who I am. Those teen years are still trying to figure out, even in late teens, still trying to figure out who you are, what's your purpose, where do you fit. So in trying to explore all of that, I remember speaking to an advisor on campus and she suggested getting involved in some service organizations where you can get to test out, parts of yourself, what you like, what you might be good at, learn new skills to see if it's something you want to continue, etc. And I had an opportunity to introduce some ideas for projects, and one was a mentorship program.
Hmm.
Absolutely love the program. I had the opportunity to lead it, and it kind of became my program in terms of I built out and developed the program. And that program actually ran for 7 years, and it had a significant impact on a lot of young people. And during that time, I found that I was able to make connections very easily. I found that I was able to quite naturally pick up patterns and think of ways to solve problems or seek out information. I was very intrigued to find out how things worked and how problems could be solved in terms of human life.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I spoke to the advisor and then she suggested, why not look at psychology? So I went and I did some research in it and I said, you know what, I feel like this is a good fit for me. And that's where it started. And maybe switch over to psychology and the rest was history. I kind of excelled, sailed through it. I was just extremely interested in it. And then from there on to graduate studies and yeah, just kept going.
And that's a interesting story, a background in law, and then finding a passion project that turned into a shift in your career.
Mhm.
So as a Bayesian, I wanted to ask, as a Bayesian, how has the culture and the lifestyle and the community of Barbados influenced your approach to mental health and wellness?
Yeah, definitely. As persons not usually very open to admitting or accepting that there is a psychological problem. So approaching persons in that vein is usually met with a lot of reserve, but persons like to solve problems and they see problems more macro, more multi dimensional. So in my approach, and because of culture, I always say that these are ways of solving problems, and I speak about the practical ways in which persons can see that. So if you have a problem with in your family, person not getting along, well, this is how we speak to solve problems in families. We help people. We speak in terms in which people understand. Other terms seem to be are more regarded as foreign and not so readily accepted when we talk about mental health. So even in terms of describing psychological challenges or disorders, I speak more to the actual practical ways in which people identify with it. So, you're feeling that you just can't, and more like describe it, you can't get out of bed, it's hard to feel productive at work. And I'm talking about depression, but I'm not using the word depression not until sometime after the person is actually comfortable and ready to say, I got a real problem. So speaking to people in terms that they can relate to has really influenced the way that I approach psychology. And also because of the culture where persons are not usually so open, I am very personable in my approach. So I'm not, the aloof professional who's standoffish, and I'll just listen and I'll just speak to you, like an overview kind of way. But Caribbean people feel comfortable when they feel that they can speak to a person on a very personal level.
Yes.
Yeah. And obviously, we take into consideration differences, diversity in terms of clients who may be from the Caribbean, clients who may not be from the Caribbean, because it's a complete different expectation sometimes in what that working relationship will look like with a therapist. Persons in the Caribbean, they want to feel like the person's friendly. They want to feel like there's a connection. We're very connected people. So they really feeling for some sense of connection and understanding at the same time. So culture definitely has a big influence on my approach to psychology.
Yeah. And that was good. I would like to ask, like, are there any practical everyday self-help tips that you could recommend persons to manage stress and to improve their mental wellness? Because I know sometimes we don't realize that we're stressed until we reach to that breaking point. So, are there any tips that you could provide us to basically alleviate us getting to that point of burnout, more or less?
Yeah, so stress is really when your demands are exceeding what you think you can give to them. That creates a level of stress. Burnout is when you're not recovering from stress. So things are spiraling, things are getting worse, you're experiencing other problems mentally, physically because of the stress, and there's no rest period or recovery period in between. So you get to the point where you just can't function.
Yeah.
So being able to address things when things have become stressful or you're in a state of distress is really where you want to start to begin to deal with it, because it's harder to recover from burnout than it is to recover from being in a stressful situation. Burnout takes longer and sometimes requires more support. one of the things you can do is actually pause and really pay attention to what are your feelings and thoughts in the situation. Because a lot of the time we're just trying to survive, we're just trying to push through, we're just trying to problem solve, get things out the way, but we're not really stopping to take close attention to how did I feel about myself in that moment? What did I think about myself in that moment? What have I been saying to myself during this period of time? How have I been feeling about other person's thoughts and expressions about what I've been doing or how I'm coping at this point in time? Paying attention to what's happening internally and what's happening externally is a really good place to start. You have to be aware, because if you're not aware, that's where you lead to problems because you don't know when to stop. Um, you're not aware that other crises are developing. Other things know where the self-esteem now has been depleted and other things are happening. So you want to pay attention to what's happening internally and what's happening externally. Also, in terms of your internal, how easy is it for you to get back to a state of being calm and relaxed? Is it harder for you to relax? Are you not in a state where you feel always anxious and on edge? Is your sleep being impacted? How is your sleep? Are you sleeping at all? All of these things are clues that you may be coping or you may not be coping well. So you want to pay attention to those very early signs that things might not be going right and you might need to actually stop and implement some things to be able to deal with what's happening. So those are the tips for the early prevention or early intervention.
Okay. So, for someone who may be struggling to find their rhythm in life,
Mhm.
and that is basically just not necessarily just surviving, but to actually be flowing with life and feeling good about themselves on a day to day. You gave me some tips just now about early detection for feeling stressed and burnout. But in terms of someone struggling to find their rhythm, what are some simple steps that you could recommend for them to begin this journey of finding their rhythm?
Well, finding your rhythm speaks a lot to being able to recalibrate, being able to organize yourself around what's happening in your life, where you don't lose yourself. So life is not perfect. Things are always going to happen. There'll be disappointments, there'll be setbacks, there'll be challenges. And on the flip side, there are achievements, there are opportunities where sometimes you have to adjust as well. So how are you able to calibrate yourself around change or challenges? Speaks to your ability to find your rhythm and keep your rhythm through life. And as I said, not lose yourself in the process. Okay. So being able to find your rhythm has a lot to do with how resilient you are and also how filled you are in terms of your ability to cope with life. Where are you at in terms of developing in those areas that help you to be able to reorganize yourself or recalibrate yourself around situations? So being mindful of where your weaknesses are, where your strengths are, those areas that need further development, those areas where you may feel stuck, those areas where you may need to maybe seek help, or you may need to advance yourself with further information. Those are some things that you can do in order to improve your rhythm, and maintain your rhythm. When I think of rhythm, I think of like a heartbeat, you know. And there are times when your heartbeat needs to pick up the pace,
Mm-hmm.
but there also needs to be a recovery period. You know, if I run on a treadmill for 10 minutes, my heartbeat is going to pick up the pace, but I don't need it to stay at that pace for 3 hours. Then it becomes problematic.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to be aware of where my rhythm is and if it is suitable to what's happening around me, if it is appropriate, if it is functional, if it is effective according to what's happening around me. So asking yourself, am I being effective right now in this situation? Am I functioning right now in this situation? So raising your level of awareness as to how you're able to organize yourself around all these moving parts in your life. And so each person's rhythm is actually going to be very unique. So you can't judge your rhythm according to how somebody else is managing their rhythm because their rhythm life may call for a completely different beat to yours.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it has to be your own unique needs that are being addressed, and it's your own journey. Because there are things I always say, life's not a journey to perfection, it's a journey towards mastery. Mastery is getting to a place where you're in control and life is not controlling you. And you're making progress where you are growing, maturing, and you're um, securing or what's the word I want? Maintaining a level of control over what's happening in your life and where you're going and how you're getting there. So your rhythm is going to be very unique to that journey. So embracing it as well, because sometimes we don't like to embrace what's happening in our lives, but there are a lot of things that we don't have control over. When you don't have control over those things, how are you growing in this situation? What are the things that you need to master so that you can get through this period, get over it, get around it? All of these things matter and they play a role in your own unique rhythm in life. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so true. I would have stumbled across a quote online probably a few weeks ago, and it was saying basically even the steps backward is a part of the dance in terms of finding your rhythm. And I think that for me in particular, I think that at times I may have like a one set track mind, like if I'm focused on something. And when I stumbled across that quote, it was a period in my life where I had to realize that, sometimes stepping backwards or stepping away from certain things can be the redirection that you need to press on and move forward into another direction. So one thing I have learned with trying to find my rhythm is that the beat won't always be the same and it won't always be the same pace. And not because it's not the same pace or the same beat means that I'm not flowing through life the way that I need to.
Hmm. Absolutely. And even when you have to take a step back, you're not the same person. You're not stepping back as the same person if you have to step back into a situation or um a, well, it's like a circumstance. You know, you're every minute that passes, you've changed in some way. You've gone through something, even another hour later, you've had an interaction that you've not had prior, right? So you're constantly going somewhere in life. How far that is, or the direction it goes, is determined by a lot of factors that we have to contribute to as well.
Hmm.
But we are always changing, we're always growing, we're always taking experiences with us. So wherever we are positioned, we have to remember that. Bringing something with you in that sphere. You're not coming back into that sphere the same person, or you're not stepping into this sphere as the same person. Experiences, the opportunities for mastery.
Yeah. So I want to jump in here into your program that you have for the single mothers. Now,
Mhm.
I just want you to give us an overview of that program and what was the inspiration behind of starting that program for the single mother.
Okay, so in my work as a psychologist, I see a lot of women and
Hmm.
I see a lot of single mothers.
Hmm.
It's just one of those things that come along with being in the Caribbean,
Yeah.
right? And so the experiences of single mothers in the Caribbean, and I say in the Caribbean because not all my clients are Barbadian,
Hmm.
but they share a lot of experiences and challenges and so forth. And there are some unique situations that single mothers tend to go through and experience. And there's some unique challenges as well that they face. And so through my individual sessions, I've been able to think of how can I help single mothers in 2025, just as we were talking about, as you've catch the phrase, find or like almost find their rhythm.
Right.
How can they be able to in 2025 be able to find a way to manage themselves psychologically, financially, so that they can make the progress that they may not have been able to make last year? How can they break the ceiling? How can they get out of the mindset maybe that kept them back? How can they develop the resilience that they need to move forward? How can they find what skills can they find and develop in 2025 to move forward? So it is very much about the psychology of the single mother, but it's also about the practical, real life, everyday struggles of the single mother as well. So what I did was I came together with a couple other persons and we thought about a seminar for single mothers, which we're going to have towards the end of March, where it's seminar style because I want it to be engaging. I want them to talk. I want them to share about their struggles. I want them to find a community within the setting where they can also hear, oh yes, other mothers or other single mothers are going through this as well. And this is something that they also face. And maybe someone has something that they can share that can be useful to the group of mothers. So it's about sharing and learning together. So there will be some experts who are going to give them important information about how to survive as a single mother, budgeting as a single mother, talking about relationships as a single mother, and just mental battles and things that single mothers have to work through and overcome.
So it's
So I think it's a great
like
opportunity.
so it's essentially like a support group for single mothers where they have a safe haven to interact with one another, but they're prepared to get the tools necessary to help them to navigate
Yeah.
struggles.
Yes. Yeah.
Now,
So in that setting, there will be support. There will be well, I won't say networking, but support being the better word. Where in that moment they can feel strengthened, they can feel encouraged, they can feel motivated. They can feel not alone in that space of time. It will be over 3 days that they will be engaging with each other and with experts, including myself.
okay. And is the program just in person, or is there a virtual component where persons outside of Barbados may be able to take part in this?
With this being the very first one of its kind, is going to be in person, but I do want to keep it going, and I do want to keep the conversations going as well afterwards, so persons can stay tuned for what's to come after.
Okay, okay. So it's the first of its kind. It's in Barbados, and you never know who may stumble across this video. So could you tell us a little bit more about the location, the times, the dates?
Okay, so I don't have that information in my head right now. Ooh, too much going on with the day. But I
Okay.
don't want to give you wrong dates. I don't want to give you wrong dates. It's towards, I do know it's at the end of March.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it would be it's Friday to Sunday,
Okay.
and it's 3 hours in the evening, 4 to 7 each day,
Mm-hmm.
right? But yeah, I don't want to go ahead and give the wrong dates in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but I could always provide that information and post it. Or it would be, you can find it on Instagram, Short Life Consultancy,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can go there, you can look for the poster, and all the information will be there. You can also contact Short Life Consultancy via Instagram as well. So
Mm-hmm.
you can also reach out and ask for additional information as well with regards to that.
Okay, that sounds good. Do you have any advice that you would give, like aspiring mental health professionals, specifically because it is such a taboo topic still in the Caribbean? And I feel like with mental health being such a taboo topic in the Caribbean, sometimes the word accountability and confidentiality may come up when it comes to persons wanting to actually engage in speaking out about some of the challenges that they may have. So, if there's any advice that you may have for a young professional, what would it be?
My advice would be to get involved in programs where you have to interact with persons, where you're assisting in some way,
Mm-hmm.
um, where you're contributing. I think that's a really good place to start. And as you pursue your studies and you're getting ready to branch out, to graduate studies now where you're going to be looking to train, reach out to other professionals who are already in the field and see what opportunities they may have for you to participate in something that they have going or that they're doing. For myself, I do things with, because I work with both adults and children. And so during the holidays, I may have various types of workshops going, or perhaps during the year. So maybe doing something with kids with ADHD, with executive functioning training, or a therapy workshop for teenage girls. So sometimes there are opportunities where yes, you may not be able to engage in therapy with clients, but it may be specific programs that may have components that you can actually contribute and assist with. And even just connecting with professionals and talking with them and finding out more about what it's like in the job, in the career, the type of clients they work with, and what that's like. It's good to just start making those connections. And like I say, get out there and contributing. You can't wait until you're in the job to then want the experience of what it is like to help somebody else.
Mm-hmm. And we know that mental health, the spectrum has been widening. We have been noticing that um, different dysfunctions are now being considered mental health challenges. For example, I know that narcissism is now being added as a mental illness. And I just want to know, are there any specific skills or qualities that you think someone wanting to enter this field would need to have?
Well, definitely an interest in learning
Mm-hmm.
because there's always new information, even in terms of mental disorders. Sometimes things are added to the categories, sometimes things are changed. And so have an interest in keeping abreast the information and learning. Also, a very keen interest in human behavior. You have to a very keen interest because that's going to drive your motivation to want to learn and understand and be patient and watch things unfold and learn. Um, Being humble as well because you learn so much in interacting with clients from your learning person's life stories all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting to see person's lives live out in real time all the time. And there are things that you can learn as well. So being open-minded, being very um, interested in the fact that there's so much for you to gain as a person as well
Mm-hmm.
from being in a career, from practicing. Also knowing when you need to seek help, being aware of where you are at and what's happening, and you're living life as well as a psychologist and a mother. I have a lot of things happening all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's very important that I realize when things are impacting me, maybe even impacting my ability to deliver the level of care that I want to my client. When I'm feeling tired, when I'm feeling stressed, when I feel like I'm not managing, if I need to start doing things to help build back my resilience, build up my resilience, if I need to go and get help. And I also go to therapy. Yeah. So I know what it's like to go through it and when I need to reach out and get help as well. So for those persons who are looking to get into the area, you have to be able to have help seeking skills as well.
Okay. So I'll put down my phone. I just want to have a conversation now. I want to just dive in. There's no more questions. It's just conversation now. I feel
Mhm.
like in the Caribbean, we have this stigma against mental health. Like, I think we've been taught to be resilient and we shied away from speaking about how we feel. And, if you're feeling unwell mentally or internally, it's just, oh, you'll get over that sort of situation. And thank you, Mom. My mom says she's proud of me.
Yay!
And she said, and you basically are told just, get on with the day, get on with whatever the situation is and just roll with it. How do we now normalize that stigma to be false? Like you have to check in with yourself. How do we as a Caribbean people realize that having mental health challenges does not make you crazy? Having mental health challenges should not be frowned upon if you are checking in with your internal self and finding your rhythm. Because I think for the generations before me and my mom's generation and those before, it was never a conversation. We're Caribbean people, we're resilient, and that's just about it.
Mhm. Well, history has a role to play in the mindset of people. And for Caribbean people, it's been a mindset of survival, passed on from generation to generation. And there's also been um, a lot of gaps in terms of knowledge because persons, one, knowledge was not available to them, and then there wasn't a lot of self-determination either. So persons were not really able to do certain things or engage in certain things where they might be able to access other information. So having coming from the perspective that it may not be that persons don't want this, but they're missing gaps. There are things that they don't understand. So how can I help them fill in the gaps so it makes sense to them? So when I have a conversation and I'm talking about understanding development, human development, and that our ability to deal with our feelings has a lot to do with how we are raised, but in what was provided for us in the environment. And then I start to break it down and said, this thing is also related to our brain development. And there's certain information and experiences that we need so that our brains can help us along the process in us learning how to deal with emotions. So when you grow up in an environment where certain nurturing experiences are missing, where you're not told you're loved, where you're not made to feel like you're the most valuable possession given to these people, and you break it down where if you have a situation where something hurts your feelings and you're not made to think that telling people about the way you feel is important or that is even a good thing to do, then your brain is developing and your brain is learning that it's not okay. And then your brain is never getting the opportunity to learn what it really is like to go through hurt, feel, know how to access healing, and move on.
Mm-hmm.
All because these things were missing. And then people go, oh, I didn't know that that was necessary. I didn't know that I needed to have that. I didn't know that I needed to be told that. I didn't know that somebody needed to do that to me for me to be able to deal with the way I feel and how I deal with situations, right? So how can I fill in the gaps so it makes sense so they can see the big picture, right? And break it down to and persons in the Caribbean, they pick up the patterns when you realize my mother, my grandmother, my aunt, everybody has this problem. And I said, but if we go back to everybody's environment, were these things missing for each person? And they say, yeah. I said, well, that was the problem.
Yeah.
So now we understand that there are gaps.
Yeah.
And it's not intentional, or it's not that persons don't want to be able to give the best, but for whatever reason, history included, there are these gaps that prevented people from being able to do the things they really wanted to do or understand how to do things.
That's true. And I feel like there are I feel like in the Caribbean there's generational trauma that is passed down to us. And I think that in my generation we've been exposed to the internet and resources that can help us to uncover some of
And
these,
television,
and the television,
movies.
yes, to uncover some of these generational traumas. But
Mhm.
are we utilizing the resources that we have so that we can break these cycles? That is
Mhm.
the question.
You gotta understand they're only gonna seek help if they understand that there are things missing that they don't have or they don't know how to fill these gaps. So opportunities to share, opportunities to be in settings where they can hear things is very important. And then in the Caribbean, word of mouth is everything. So you have a conversation with one person and you share some light with that person, and then they go on and have a conversation with somebody else and say, but this person told me that this is the case, and this
Mm-hmm.
is why this is like this, and this is what they had to do. And so they went to this person, and that's how it goes a lot of the time.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think
When this person
because
comes, usually they had a conversation with somebody.
yeah, and I think because that's a cultural thing throughout the region, I think it makes it even harder for persons to want to seek out that help. It makes it harder for persons to want to feel comfortable enough to say that there's something missing. I have a gap in something that is transpiring in my life. But having the confidence and the courage to go out and seek that help is not there, because a lot of the times we feel like, ah, if I go and speak to so and so, even though this person is supposed to be a confidential person that I'm speaking to, I feel like my business will be in the road. And because of that, you hold on to that trauma, you hold on to those pains, and you learn to live with them. And these anchors, they follow you throughout life. And when they follow you
Hmm.
throughout life, you don't even realize when you become a parent and you repeat that cycle again.
Yeah. I usually say trauma looks different, plays out differently in your life, in different phases of your life. So it doesn't go away. A person may have particular struggles as a teenager and they may act on them in particular ways as a teenager. So you may have someone who maybe self harms and cuts as a teenager. When they go into adulthood, they may not cut anymore, but they may engage in other self destructive behaviors,
Hmm.
even if that is in relationships, toxic relationships. So the issues don't go away, they just look differently in different phases of your life.
Okay, so I have
Yeah.
another question. For the person who is doing the self work, the person who's realizing that there are certain patterns within my family or my environment, and they want to make that shift, they are self aware of some of the limitations that they experience, but they don't have the tools to actually move further than that. They still display the self destructive behavior. How does that person who is aware of the loop get out of the loop?
A lot of the time, what happens is that other people point it out to them so much that they start to believe it, you know. So then they in desperation to try to figure out why everybody else pointing out all of these issues for me, they tend to look for help. And a lot of the time, I find, as I said, for Caribbean people, connection means a lot. So from the time they reach out, if they can initiate a conversation
Hmm.
and they feel connection, they're more willing to follow through with having a session or booking a session. So it's usually about getting past the initial idea of whether this is somebody I could connect to or connect with. Yeah, so I find usually it's just about taking that step. Usually when they do, if they feel connection, they'll take a step forward and do it. But a
Yeah.
lot of the time, unfortunately, in a lot of the cases, persons do tend to go to therapy when there's a crisis, as opposed to I recognize something isn't quite right. I should probably go and explore this.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So usually desperation or being forced to because maybe you're in a relationship and the other person's like, I can't do this anymore.
Right. And you reach to the point where whatever it is that you're holding on to internally, it is so heavy that you need to release it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Another thing that I find is that persons might realize the missing gaps and realize that things are not going right but they have this mentality of I too old to fix this for myself, but I am trying to focus on my child. But while it's yes, it's nice that you recognize that and you want the child to have a space and an environment where they can learn things and where they can start to deal with some of their own issues. It's family issues. Family is systemic. You are interacting with each other, you're impacting on each other, you're growing. It's a system.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing this together. So you really cannot be as impactful as you would like or see the change that you would like for your child unless you are involved, unless you deal with your own issues and your own hurt and your own trauma, unless you grow an understanding about yourself and skills in order to improve and be supportive and be effective, because a child cannot develop outside of the parent, not
Mm-hmm.
healthily.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of I can just focus on my child, you're still limiting, you're still putting a barrier on how far the family can recover or break through. So that's another mindset that really needs to be challenged and changed if we are really going to have a big impact, because children are meant to grow within community, not singularity, not in themselves. So the family, um, the unit has to be healthy for that child to grow healthily. And that's
Okay.
how children learn.
And you would say maybe that is one of the contributing factors right now to the breakdown in society in terms of the behavior of youth.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Society, we were as human beings, we're meant to learn through community, systems, systematically. Right? We're supposed to be impacted by our culture, our society as human beings. And when there's a breakdown there, or there are problems there, or the behaviors, the morals, the values are not anything that can perpetuate anything healthy, then the child is going to be impacted. Children are not with their parents 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
It's the society that's raising the child. The parents are part of that society. And so when we have a breakdown, we have to look at the society at large, what's happening in the environment, because that's also going to impact on the parents. And
Mm-hmm.
even the parents who have the best intentions and knowledge and they're trying really, really, really hard to make a difference, their job is so much harder if they don't have the wider system to back them and support them and to continue to reinforce the things that they're trying to reinforce. So it makes parenting then become difficult.
Mm-hmm. And I think I would say to add to that, I think my generation, our parents, their parents, for the most part, in some of the smaller islands, would have had a hard time growing up. And some of our parents would have had a hard time growing up. And their parents were just trying to make it.
Survival.
Survival mode. And I would think that in my generation, some of our parents, they didn't have that nurturing, loving environment that a lot of us would have needed to grow up. I mean, I was fortunate to have aunts and uncles who cared for me in addition to my parents. But I know for some people that love in the home from our parents were lacking. Now we're at the age where we are now the new parents, and we're the parents in a technological age, in the age where prices everywhere is extremely high. And because it's high, persons have multiple jobs. And because we're in a technological age, our children, they don't have the experiences we had, where we would go outside and play, climb a tree, throw rocks, those sorts of things. The children would basically, we give them a tablet from the time they can hold it by themselves. They put on Cocomelon and those Roblox cartoons
Mm-hmm.
on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
They are basically occupied by a tablet 24/7.
Yeah.
With that being said, it's another form of survival. It's survival nevertheless, but it's survival in a different form.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And the children are being parented not by the parents.
Yeah.
Some are being parented by the devices,
Yeah.
and there it's causing a lot of challenges in terms of socialization, and socialization is evolving. There is removing persons are becoming less personal, are understanding what that means, and communication is also becoming restricted because communication is not just verbal. As human beings, we express ourselves non-verbally as well.
Mm-hmm.
And those are very important parts of understanding communication and learning human behavior. And when children don't have those opportunities to experience that, then they miss a lot of cues
Yeah.
and they don't understand how to relate to each other and how to respond to each other. Children learn a lot by what they see and what they observe. And when they have reduced opportunities to do that, then they're very clueless about how to navigate life
Mm-hmm.
and how to respond to emotions or what they even look like or what's expected. So there's a lot of development that can be delayed or retarded when children do not have opportunities to socialize with other children, and not just children their age, but children of various ages, older children, younger children, which would have also been a part of um, family life before. Cousins who would be there, aunts and uncles, grandparents, neighbors,
Benefiting from the extended family.
system. Yeah. So a lot of the separation, and then just my little unit, and then parents are working, as you say, survival mode, and children don't spend a lot of time with the parents, and you know, it really leaves a lot. So, as I said, it makes parenting more challenging when society has evolved to these norms as well. So it means that parents have to be more intentional, those who understand the benefits
Mm-hmm.
of having those experiences with their children, they have to be more intentional about how they can create them
Yeah.
and what they can do.
Yeah. Well, I think that we discussed quite a bit of topics here tonight. I want to ask you if you have any other initiatives that you want to speak about. You want to share where we can find you on social media as I'm about to wrap up.
Sure. So Shore Life Consultancy, you can find me on Instagram at Shore Life Consultancy. You can Google Shore Life Consultancy as well. We're on Google Business. Okay, so you can find me there. Um, I am going to be in 2025 doing a lot more seminars, workshops. I have a workshop coming up 1st of March,
Mm-hmm.
and that is for parents who have children with mental health challenges. So
Okay.
helping parents navigate those relationships
Mm-hmm.
with their children who have mental health challenges. So there'll be other such workshops, workshops for couples, workshops for fathers, workshops for teenagers as well. So coming up this year, I'm going to be doing a lot more because I really want to get a lot more engagement. I want people to have to understand the missing parts. So hopefully they can take the steps to continue the process for themselves and for their families.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
So, Akilah Bishop, I just want to thank you for coming on to Walk About TV tonight on Find Your Rhythm. It was important for me to talk a bit about our internal rhythms because I feel like it's been neglected and it's something that we should normalize in the Caribbean specifically. I had the pleasure of meeting you quite like a few years ago, and we've connected ever since. And I'm thankful for having you a part of my tribe, my rhythm, helping me to find my
Ah,
rhythm again.
I am also appreciative of being along on that journey. Yes,
Yes,
definitely. I forgot to mention I'm on TikTok,
yes.
new to TikTok, but excited to be able to put content out there regarding mental health and personal development. That is going to be my focus.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to get into the live chats as well because I want to be able to engage with people,
Mm-hmm.
interact, share, talk about it, what it's like, even for persons from the Caribbean dealing with mental health issues and how to just deal with problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so looking forward to that as well.
And I am looking forward. I'm already following you on TikTok. So I am looking forward to the content and the tips. Just before we
Yeah,
wrap,
thank you.
let's get at least two tips that persons can use on a day-to-day basis to check in with their internal rhythms.
Nice. Okay, great. Sounds good. Yes, please. I'm so thankful for this opportunity. I really enjoyed it. And, I look forward to doing this again
I look forward.
anytime.
Yeah, thank you so much. So what I was saying just before we wrap up, just give us two tips that persons can
Mm-hmm.
use on a day-to-day basis just to check in with their internal
All
rhythm.
right. Okay, so assessing, taking just a moment to think about reflecting on a day, maybe today or the end of the day. Taking one moment to just check in with yourself and ask yourself, what did I experience today? Take a moment and listen to your thoughts because we're so often so busy, wrapped up in our day that we don't take time to stop and actually listen to our thoughts or really process how we were impacted by something that happened in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So take a moment and think back on your day. Was there anything that happened today that impacted me? Was there anything someone maybe said to me that for a moment threw me off
Mm-hmm.
or hurt my feelings or made me think something negative about myself or another person? How was I impacted by my day? Did I feel overly frustrated? Did I maybe overreact in a situation? Or maybe I didn't at all? Reflecting. Reflection is really important. Just taking a moment somewhere quiet and just really thinking about it. That's one tip.
Mm-hmm.
Also, another tip can be, where are my emotions at? What's happening with my emotions? Do I even know what I feel? Am I feeling numb? Am I overly agitated? Am I feeling angry? Am I feeling unaccomplished? Where am I at emotionally? What's happening every day with my emotions? Am I feeling like an angry person? Have I become very passive and low care-ish? What's happening here? Because those are signs that something may be happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to reflect and you want to pay attention to If you had to ask yourself, what kind of person I'm like, if persons had to define me or describe me, what would they say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, looking for those clues. Those are two tips.
Those are two good tips. So before I close out, I want to thank Daddy Prick of the Infusion XL band for allowing me to use the song that I used in my intro. It's called Carnival Time. It's by Infusion XL. I just want to thank him for allowing me to use that song. I want to thank persons who are watching the live, persons who may watch it later. I want to thank you once again for being a part of the program and helping us dive into our internal rhythms. I want to let persons know that we'll be back here on Friday with Viggy. He's a soca artist in Anguilla. He's currently the groovy soca flow king, and he did a media tour in Trinidad recently. So we will be finding our rhythm with him on Friday at 7 p.m. on Walkabout TV. So
Awesome.
thank you once again, Akilah. I am Valentia,
Thank you all.
the certified walkabout. This is Walkabout TV, where you can find your rhythm and find your tribe. Until next time, thank you so much.